as we begin, I'm going to allow our chairwoman, Ms. Douglas, to officially bring us to start our meeting. But I would like to introduce our newest city planner, who will be, along with Sean, taking over the day-to-day operations of our
sit at your name.
PPAC. Some of you may know, most of you may not, but since we met last, I was promoted to director. And so I am going to be relinquishing some of the day-to-day operations so that I can continue to focus now on department-wide matters. So I am extremely excited that you all are here, and I'm even more excited to introduce to you all Ms. Renika Brooks. You all have met Sean. He's helped in a few of our past meetings, and so together they now are going to make up the advanced planning section of our planning division. So they're a two-person operation. I also have two of my current planning planners, Assistant Planner Dave Smith and Brandon Moses. Our staff assistant, Benjamin Lane, who is helping out. All right. So, without further ado, Ms. Douglas, the floor is yours, and then we're going to turn it over to our amazing consultants who you all know them. So,
let's stand and have our pledge of allegiance. Place our right hand over our heart and pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Names, so we'll have to go around and do
Mr. Chair, I'll bring it up here if you want to reference that.
Thank you so much. Dr. Bishop present, Crystal Alexander present, Maxine Barker, Laura Thomas present, Sherry Darnielle present, Michael. Miguel Eckert. Okay. Valerie Felix. Harvey Jordan. Cheryl Dunn.
Gwen.
here, it's Gwen.
I apologize. Mari Rodriguez. Sharice Nicholson. William Perez.
Present.
Ramon. I can see him. Kip Rudd. Patrick Sanchez. Patricia Sanchez. Jacqueline Scott. Jason Scott. Alicia Smith. Greg C. Phyllis Thompson. Lydia Vasquez. Did I miss anybody? It's not here. Okay. Thank you so much. So I'm sure you'll thoroughly look that we have tonight. And I'd like to thank Ms. Malika Brooks for all that your information and orderly and attachments and so forth. And thank you so much for that. And welcome to our community. Summary of community outreach with you are doing a summary of the community outreach.
So at this point, we will have our consultants take over. Also, before you, as we're going through, I will be coming around, handing out some more swag. Alright, so yeah, it's exclusive, hot off the press, and I just want you to know, the only people that have these t-shirts are the planning commission.
Okay.
So, yeah, so you have the exclusive, newest, next level colorway. Alright, and so, I'll be coming around getting your sizes and some t-shirts during the meeting, alright? Wear it loud and proud, so I was telling Cherie, if someone asks you where you got it from, tell them they have to come to a community meeting to find out. Right? Alright, so
And we have to be
sure.
invited to the community events also, so we can show up.
Right. Here we go. So, and then we gotta represent next level. All right. Thank you. So I'll provide you. We're going through the presentation.
Before we move forward, the young people, could you introduce yourselves? You did, and tell us what you do. Are you working with the city or just with the committee? I'd like to see young people above on committees so we can sit down at some point.
Hi, my name is Faith Smith. I work here in the planning division. I'm an assistant.
My name is Brian Espinosa. I'm the secretary, I'm an assistant planner.
Welcome the young people. I think I have everyone. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jonathan. For those of you who are here for the first time, I'm the project manager and principal in charge of this, working in collaboration with city staff. I work for a private company called Placeworks. We are all long-range planners, working on general plans and other comprehensive long-range planning documents throughout the state, and have the privilege of working in collaboration with city staff and all of you and the wider community to craft this vision for the future of Inglewood. Hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. It's been a few months since we've been together, so we are gonna, in many ways, pick up where we left off. So, in terms of our agenda for our meeting this evening, we're moving quick. We already got through number 1. We're going to do a quick update on where we are in terms of the overall project schedule. Sorry, I'm going to project. I feel that you're all so far away. We are going to talk quickly about the outreach activities that the team has been engaged in since our last meeting. We're going to talk, spend the bulk of the time this evening talking about a land use alternatives map that was provided to you in advance along with the presentation materials, and then at the end of the meeting we'll have opportunity for public comment and we'll share a little bit about what's coming up next on our project. So I'm going to move right away into an update on the project schedule. Just quickly though, before I do that, I want to just let you all know, in terms of the format of tonight's meeting, once we get into the land use materials, the intent is that it is a group discussion that we're going to be engaged in. We're not going to be breaking out into individual smaller groups this evening. We're going to have discussions among ourselves all together so that everyone has the benefit of hearing from each other, of having an opportunity to be involved in the conversation. So just wanted to make that clear in terms of the format of our meeting tonight. So in terms of our project schedule, we are still in the land use plan portion of our phase 2 work. As most of you will recall, phase 1 was completed within the majority of the calendar year 2024. This year, we've begun the second phase, which is the second and final phase of the general plan update. And the first focused area in which our conversations and conversations with the broader community are focused around the update of the city's land use plan. We spent some time in our last meeting talking about what a land use plan is, what we'll be doing in that process for updating it. We'll come back to some of those key points as we move forward. This process is going to be taking us through around spring of next year. at which point we're hopefully gonna get confirmation of a draft preferred land use plan that, from that point forward, we'll be moving into the policy writing of the other elements of the general plan, annual land use plan itself. And in tandem, the EIR or environmental impact report will be prepared as the elements of the general plan are being drafted. Okay, so as a reminder, these are the different elements of the plan for the city of Inglewood. Our focus again for this evening and our next conversation is the land use element, and more specifically the land use plan. And then we will have, we'll be getting into some discussions with you all about the additional elements that we're making updates to as we move forward throughout next year. But for now, our focus is still on the land use element and the land use plan. My clicker is connected here. So quickly wanted to talk about the activities that our team has been engaged with along with city staff. Some of you had the opportunity to join us at some of these events. We have been collecting feedback on the focus areas that we discussed together at our last meeting and taking input on the types of land uses that people would like to see in the future in those areas of potential change. The venue for those conversations was a community open house on September 6th. We also replicated those engagement activities at District 4 Town Hall through an online survey that was available for several weeks and promoted through various means and linked through the project website. We also had the opportunity to we'll be trying to make some, or take your recommendations for, of those alternatives, what a preferred land use will be in particular areas. So as we go through tonight, we're gonna ask you to tell us if there are specific areas you want to discuss further for potential changes to those alternatives. If not, we're going to move them, they are confirmed, we're going to move them forward, and they're going to be included in what gets presented to the public for their feedback. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, some ground rules or things to keep in mind for tonight, and this relates to what I mentioned before about the reasons why a couple of themes that we heard in the feedback from the public are not reflected in the map tonight. One is that, as I had mentioned, we did hear a desire for more parks and open space. What the city cannot do is to designate a privately owned piece of property for park use if it's not shown as that use today. It's called a taking. There's lots of legal restrictions on that. We are going to address park access and open space access in the open space and recreation element of the general plan. And there's lots of policy, ways that we can address expanding access and policy. How to encourage more parks and open space be provided as part of private development projects in the future. Ways the city can take advantage of opportunities to provide more park space, whether it's city-owned property or other publicly owned property. So we are going to come back to that topic in the future. The reason why we're not showing entire corridors or areas as an alternative for park space is because the majority of these areas are made up of privately owned parcels. Another thing to note is that we cannot reduce the city's overall capacity for housing. The state won't allow us to do that. So in any area that allows housing today, we have to continue to allow at least as much housing as is allowed today. Unless, if we want to reduce it in one area, we need to increase it by at least that much in another area of the city. I think it's important that everybody knows, so there aren't surprises in the future. You may already be aware of this, that the state allows affordable housing projects certain benefits for providing affordable housing that allow them to exceed height limits or density limits that are established by cities. There is a lot of quantitative regulations that are associated with those state density bonus laws. You might have heard about them, but that is something that I think it's helpful for you all to be aware of. And then there's also recent state legislation that ties the city's hands in certain ways. The first is that in all residential areas of the city, including the lowest density areas, state law allows for a minimum of 4 housing units. That is the reason why that comment that we heard about allowing for,
We didn't
Yes,
understand.
they can build 4 homes next to your beautiful single-family home. And the state says they can't. Yeah, Hervé, the state, and we can't do anything about it.
Would you reiterate that? I don't know what you really just said. Would you repeat that?
State law.
state law allows for or provides for in areas that are zoned, even at the lowest density of residential, 1 housing unit per parcel, state law allows those parcels to be subdivided, also allows for accessory dwelling units, resulting in a minimum, allowing for a minimum of 4 housing units on every parcel.
A minimum.
You're saying, sir,
Well,
allows.
at least 4.
You're saying allows, but doesn't mandate.
Correct. That's right.
So my neighbor can tear down their house and build a 4-unit complex.
There's a process to it, but essentially that is the
So
the
a
overarching,
single-family coding for a house no longer exists.
That's correct.
There's
That's
all
correct.
lots in the city are multiple.
The entire state?
Entire
Yes.
state.
Isn't it maximum? You can do no more than 4?
Yeah, no more than.
It's not minimum.
That's what I was questioning.
No, the minimum is 4. It doesn't put a cap on what's allowed. It establishes no less than 4.
Okay.
You can do 2 duplexes.
You can,
A
yes.
lot, so you can have 4 units, but you can't go above that on a
Cities-
single-family
Cities
house.
can choose to allow more than that, but it's not required to go more
Right.
than that.
That's right.
Before this.
You can have 1 unit on one, it doesn't mandate 4, but it allows
Allows for
at least 4.
Allows for 4.
It allows for 4.
It would be
Unless the
helpful to
city
know if the
goes
city has
beyond.
said you can do more than that.
Unless the city goes beyond, that's right.
So in other words, sir, a developer could come in and buy my house. I'm already on 2 lots, and he could build 8 units.
Yes.
Minimum.
On your double lot, you can build it.
You build 8.
Doesn't have to be the government, it could be any private minimum.
So what was the,
Okay.
before this law?
Let's just forget about the minimum, just it allows for 4 units, yes, on a single-family parcel.
The point is that what was at one time strictly allowed for single-family homes is no longer the case.
Yeah. So we heard, the reason why this is relevant to what I mentioned earlier is that, in some areas of the city, there was feedback where people wanted to see duplex, triplex, quadplex in single-family neighborhoods. That is already allowed today, so it does not need to be replicated on the plan itself.
Just for clarification, sir, because, I'm kind of stuck on this 575 proposed. So does that mean that over there could actually turn into 2,300? A developer could change the perspectives that he's offered now and have 2,300 on that piece of land, which is now designed.
I don't know
for
what that parcel
575?
is zoned for, but if it may be zoned for a higher residential density than single-family to begin with.
You said what, I'm sorry?
You know, I'm stuck on the 575. So does that mean that that could actually become 2,300?
No, no. Well, because there are density standards.
Sorry.
In the essence of time, do we,
Yeah,
how are we doing with that time?
Yeah, I mean, 6:52.
Not good.
I think we
So I know we
should
have
get
a
through it.
presentation.
And after he get through his presentation and Hervé, what we'll do is next week you can sit down and talk to you.
Okay, then you know what to tell everybody.
All right.
And it doesn't provide for any additional parking, in
Well,
addition to that.
that's a great point. All right, Jonathan, the floor is yours.
All right, I do want to try to keep us focused on our agenda for tonight.
Thank you.
The state law also allows, with conditions, housing to be built in any commercial area as well. We're going to come back to this discussion, but you can build housing in areas that are zoned only for commercial, but with certain considerations, like you have to provide a certain amount of affordable housing, you have to meet certain wage laws, but the state has allowed for that recently. And then most recently, the state has passed legislation, SB 79, that allows for housing within the radius of a transit station, within a half mile of a transit station. You may have heard about that. Some other things to keep in mind as we go through this discussion. We do, on the land use alternatives map that are presented, we do indicate some scale of potential development. The general plan does not typically set height limits. That's usually set through the zoning code. What we're using scale here as a stand-in for understanding ultimately how to describe the envelope for density and intensity, which I think we talked about in our last meeting. That sets the overall framework for how much housing or how much commercial or non-residential development can be built on a site.
Yeah, I know at one time there was that no building could be taller than City Hall. Has that gone by the wayside?
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
parts of the city that allow higher than that today.
Yeah, I know back in the day it was
Okay.
like that,
Can't miss it.
Yeah.
yeah. Back in, yeah.
And just in case, City Hall will add a couple floors.
There you go. Okay. One more, I think, here before we get into the weeds a little bit. And just
Sure, in the weeds.
describing these were the types of land use that we're working with and that were presented to the community for them to provide their feedback, their preferences. When we talk about commercial only, we're talking about parcels or areas that only allow for retail, services, offices, those types of uses. Residential only allows for housing of different scales, but principally housing types when we talk about residential only. Now, horizontal mixed use would allow for you to build all housing or all commercial uses right next to each other. It also allows you to build housing on top of commercial, which is called vertical mixed use. It's a little confusing here now. Vertical mixed use allows for 100% commercial buildings or residential, so housing, as long as it's integrated with a commercial use. What it doesn't allow for is a 100% residential building on a parcel. Yes?
So would a vertical mixed use, like an example, would that be how the Astro is on top of the Target on the branch?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And wouldn't that be against state law? You just said that you had to allow for residential and commercial districts. The state requires that.
What would be against state law?
That you couldn't
Having-
build an apartment building in a commercial district.
You can build the apartment building, it just has to have it, the commercial integrated.
It has to meet, it would, in a vertical mixed-use area, you could build 100% residential if you met those criteria that the state sets forward. So not
I see.
Not as of right, you
Okay.
have to either incorporate affordable housing or, yeah. It's important, though, to understand. So thank you for bringing that up. Because when we look at this map, we talk about commercial only.
Mhm.
Those are areas we do want to maintain as commercial-only areas, but if a developer wants to take advantage of state law, they could build housing in those areas, and the city would not be able to reject it. Yeah. Now, in case any of these laws are ever wiped out in the future, could we do, I think it's in the city's interest to put forward a plan that is their vision for how they want land use governed. You never know what happens with these laws. They can be changed, they can be repealed, they can be unfanged in some ways, updated. So that's why I think it's important to know that, but the city should still chart the course that it wants to take in determining its land use preferences. And the state's gonna do what the state's gonna do.
It's all political.
Okay. Let's start. We're 58 minutes in, so let's see how much we can get through. Hopefully we can air any comments that you have. We're just gonna go through this process and look at groupings of sites that fall under these different types that we've described. If there's no comments or changes, we'll move forward until we find those in which you all have comments you'd like to raise, questions, recommendations. We're going to start with the auto-oriented corridors shown on the map here. Sorry, not this map. We're going to start with auto-oriented corridors and then pedestrian-oriented corridors. Then we're going to group sites that are those underutilized large format retail sites, and then talk about the additional districts shown in blue. So let's start there with auto-oriented corridors. What these are, as a reminder, are they're typically wide thoroughfares that are designed to max the movement of vehicles. These are areas that are unlikely, in the near future, or even in 25 years, to support a pedestrian-oriented environment, a place where you want to spend time walking, biking. There are also a lot of these generally zoned only for commercial use today. Overall, there's probably too much land that is dedicated just to commercial uses overall throughout the city. If you think about the shifting nature of shopping, the fact that people are spending more online, less in stores, the overall physical footprint of retail is shrinking everywhere. So the question to keep in mind is, how do you allow for or encourage investment in these areas in the future in a way that's appropriate to their character? What I want to start with, and we provided this in the materials that we sent to you, are some examples that our team prepared of illustrations of representative types of development, what those could look like in the future, looking at some of the sites that we have in our map today. We're going to start with an auto-oriented corridor. Looking at those, this is Prairie Avenue. The Intuit Dome is in the upper right-hand corner here, so this is south of Century, looking north along Prairie. That's one example of an auto-oriented corridor we're looking at, and we're going to show what could it look like in the future if a couple of these parcels that are vacant or underutilized today, in particular the parking lot adjacent to Mi Mercadito and that vacant parcel across the street, if those were to transition to horizontal mixed use, it could look something like this. This is not a proposal. This is nothing a developer has shown. This is nothing that's been submitted to the city. This is a hand-drawn potential illustration of what it could look like to have single parcels over time in an area, in an auto-oriented corridor, transition to horizontal mixed use where you have a residential building sitting next to an office building. And what you see here are ways that you can transition those buildings in terms of their heights, step them back as they front on the lower density residential neighborhoods. So that is just to give you an idea, what could this look like in an area? Yeah.
So I see they have a crosswalk. So does that mean if we go in that direction that the speed limit would be limited? And is that, what purview is that under? Does that, don't think about that?
This is, yeah.
Okay.
Think of it at just a higher level.
Okay.
So this is not a specific proposal for this parcel. This is
Okay.
just an idea, an illustrative idea.
Is there another term that we can use instead of auto-oriented? It seems like auto-oriented is fast food restaurants, parking lots, gas stations, and what you're illustrating is clearly not that.
Auto-oriented is the nature of the street itself, not the uses that are
Well,
on
it
the
implies
street.
the uses. And is there a way to say it's a major boulevard?
Sure, yeah.
Or a wide boulevard, or
Sure.
something that doesn't connote McDonald's at every corner?
Sure. Major boulevard, yeah.
And we're trying to, I wouldn't say eliminate, but reduce these areas and turn them into horizontal mixes with these illustrations, right?
This isn't, when you're thinking about the alternatives that are being presented, this is meant to just evoke what those alternatives, the character of those, what an alternative could be in the future.
So I think what it means is that would a car still be able to go down that street versus what I'm thinking, just what comes to mind, it's out of Inglewood, it's in Santa Monica, where 3rd Street used to have traffic, and now it's closed, and it becomes a promenade for cycles and pedestrians. Does that help?
No, for me?
Anybody?
Oh. I just, auto-oriented classically is gas stations and fast food and large parking lots. It's not what's being illustrated here, in my mind.
So given that, do you have an alternative descriptor?
Major boulevard, major corridor.
So, yeah, just the way we were trying to categorize similar areas with a similar character in the city. So major boulevard is fine if we want to use that as a more descriptive term. Let me just show other images, same location. This is just some views of at a street level, just to give you a sense, you know, a representative, evocative image of, to keep in mind when we're considering horizontal mixed use in a major boulevard. Okay. The first 2 sites that we want to talk about, and we're going to go site by site. I think you may have a printed map with you if you want to follow on with the printed map and locate these. This is site A and C2 that we're looking at, so I'll describe them. Site A is Centinela, north of Florence, west of Edward Vincent Park. It's where there's a new apartment building called Sora that's located. Horizontal mixed use is unchanged from what's allowed today in the TOD plan, and it follows the pattern of current use here. So that's the recommended, or the alternative that's being presented here. This site also falls within that transit station catchment area. And in the comments that the public provided, both retail and residential were among the recommended uses for this area. C2 is Prairie Avenue. This is north of Century and south of Manchester, so across the street from the Forum and SoFi, or along the street that borders those. There's some housing along this corridor today. There is a potential opportunity to add more housing in the future. The top comments from the public indicated a preference for commercial and hospitality uses in this area. So the question to this committee is, is there any reason that you have for, does anybody want to discuss either of these sites further? Or, and just one more thing I want to point out here in terms of horizontal mixed use, allows the greatest flexibility for future development because it allows for both residential and commercial as market conditions change over time. Right now, today, residential is a land use that developers want to build. In most places, they're not looking to build new retail buildings, malls, stores, office buildings, for various reasons that we could talk a lot about. But horizontal mixed use provides the greatest flexibility.
May I comment?
Please.
Would an example of this be SpaceX on one side as a commercial and all those apartment buildings across the street? And well, there's a parking structure too on Crenshaw. Are you familiar?
It's in Hawthorne.
It's in Hawthorne, but I'm just asking, is that a?
I'm not familiar with the specific location, but it would allow for, horizontal mixed use allows for residential right next to commercial uses, mixed in together. So similar to the pattern of land uses that exist today in these areas. The only difference is on Prairie today in this area, it's designated for commercial use. So it does not allow for housing under all conditions. Horizontal mixed use would allow for housing.
It makes sense for Prairie.
So all of Prairie from
This is just from Manchester to Century.
Century, okay.
My question for that, because I know there's
does
a
it-
lot of like auto-oriented
There
areas.
are-
Speak up a little
We
bit.
can't hear.
There's a lot of auto-oriented areas over there as well. Like, they have the Sizzlers right there on Prairie, Manchester, down the street from Manchester around that Prairie
Yeah.
area, Starbucks,
Yeah.
But it is also very like compact. It's definitely something, I feel like that would be hard for a residential area, especially due to the SoFi Stadium being right there. It's a huge commercial entertainment, and then down the street, Intuit Dome. So how would the horizontal mix like help it? How would that help more residential areas? Because I feel like it wouldn't due to.
It would, the way it helps the city's overall objectives is to accommodate more housing in more places.
But how at this specific spot due to its, compactness due to the entertainments around it? So how would this specific part help
They don't care.
residential?
How does it help residential?
How does it help expand
It's not
residential housing,
ideal
especially
residential.
due to it being so compact?
What do you mean?
I think I understand what you're asking me.
Advantages?
With a horizontal use, the bottom could be all commercial.
Right.
And they would add, just like the Astor and Target, those would go throughout that. So it would provide housing
Okay.
for the need, to meet whatever that need is,
Okay.
while still providing the availability for commercial properties.
Okay.
But I have a question to tag on to what he's saying.
Yeah.
When you do these zonings, are you able to say 50-50 commercial, 50 residential? Are you able to allocate what those percentages are, or is it just a free-for-all? This building
Yeah,
is
no,
zoned.
the city can apply conditions through the zoning code as to how much commercial is required in mixed use area. But horizontal mixed use would not regulate, it would not mandate that you have a split on a single site between a mix of uses. It would allow for 100% commercial or 100% horizontal or a mix on one site.
And that or, that's where my question becomes, that or.
Yeah.
Trying to think through
Yeah.
with the questions that are being posed.
Mhm.
Say, yes, we do it, great, sure. And the intent for the community is majority commercial, but the property owner wants the opposite. How is that going to be, how do we propose that to the public? Because at the end of the day, no disrespect to you gentlemen, When you guys pack up, you go to your houses, we still live here. So I need to know what that looks like for my children, my grandchildren. If we are talking something like this, a horizontal usage, what are going to be the parameters on that? If we're just leaving it open to the builder's discretion, that's not benefiting the community, because most builders here aren't from here.
But what would you like to control? Maybe that
The
would be
usage
helpful to
of it, if
understand.
we're gonna do something like that, like he's saying, that's a heavy, main thoroughfare over there, so we need to be very much, it's already hectic over there. Already hectic. So if we bring in commercial, okay, we could assume by 7 o'clock in the evening, the traffic would dissipate because businesses are closing. I'm being theoretical. But if you still have a 90% residential component there, that traffic doesn't dissipate. It multiplies in addition to what we're already contending with. So if we're discussing something like that, I'm speaking for me at this point. I would like to see some parameters put on that. 50%, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, don't get me wrong. 50% commercial, 50% residential. Because with that,
50%.
that bringing it in, we're not reducing anything. We're adding to the congestion, we're adding to the traffic. The intent for this, I'm going to assume, is to think logically through so that we are addressing all components of this.
And I might
This sets it, I just want to, the general plan sets at a general level what the land use is allowed throughout the city, okay? The zoning code, which, you know, is not being updated as a part of this process, sets those more specific
Gotcha.
criteria for development on any particular site.
Okay.
And then,
So let me just say, go ahead.
might I add, I believe that even if that is, it wouldn't be a high reward area to even locate due to the arena being right there, people living in that resident, concerts, forum events, things that go on through the night, causing, you know, loud noises, that can disrupt the resident itself, making it a low area to locate,
Yeah.
or not a desirable area to locate, which will, you know, be a loss of money, and then just rebuild as now it's higher. Now you have to pay higher to live here because we don't have as much money because not a lot of people want to live here. So that's definitely not an area that I think should be a horizontal mix or just in that general street, because one, traffic, not a lot of people come home late, you know. A lot of people have activities after school, to like students or, you know, children in general. So them coming home and then them having around that area, that loudness, that productiveness of that street upon Manchester as well is definitely gonna make it an undesirable resident to live in.
So let me just say, none of this is going to be a good fix. The state is mandated cities to provide housing. We don't have enough room for housing. So they're allowing them, you could never in the past, I'd say years past, mix residential with commercial. But because cities are mandated by the state under perjury of some kind of penalty, I don't know what it is, to provide housing. It's all about lack of housing. So they don't care where you do it. They're allowing, commercial to be mixed with residential, for on a lot, no parking. They don't care about parking on the street anymore. They're looking for housing to satisfy the state's plan. And cities are mandated to provide a certain amount of housing. So we have a lot of hands. You, Sneed, and then this gentleman and this lady.
So if I understand this, I think we're getting down into the weeds. This is supposed to be land use, layer one. Then we've got zoning, the next layer. Then each individual project has to go through a review, right? So we got 3 layers as to whether a structure or a building makes sense, all right? And then we're also looking to the future. A lot of people are talking about traffic. From what I'm reading, what I'm hearing is that over the next 20 to 25 years, individual car ownership is expected to decrease by about 80%.
It's gonna have to.
80%. So younger folks aren't looking to get cars, these Waymos, public transportation. That is where we're going. And you have a reverse of people leaving the inner city, going to the suburbs.
They're doing it all.
Now, things are being reconcentrated back into. So just because something designated for the land use doesn't mean that with snap of a finger it changes. Just because someone has a home there and it's designated for mixed use, now correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't mean that the home's gotta go, right?
That's correct.
It's allowed.
It's allowed, right? So a home can stay there, it's just that if that homeowner wants to sell,
Next time.
or if several homeowners want to sell, the next person that comes in can now build up. Is that correct?
Right, and I think it comes down to the question of areas you would like to see change of any kind occur. The alternative is we don't make any changes to the plan.
Yeah.
Period. So if we think this is an appropriate place for change, what does that change look like? Maybe it's not horizontal mixed use, maybe it's some other type of, commercial, although I think we've all have acknowledged that commercial in its current form is kind of shrinking. So what would we like to see? That's what it is. It doesn't have to be housing. It doesn't even have to change. But then the question becomes, why is the city going through this process? Some change is desired. Where and how much is what we're here to talk about.
And it's not being etched in granite tonight, right?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
And this is just,
Absolutely.
these are just
So,
options to present to the public.
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
These are
So
not
we have two
decisions.
more comments, then you guys need to continue on with your
Accelerate,
presentation.
yeah.
Henry?
Oh,
Uh-huh.
Irving, you delineated some levels. You kind of mentioned traffic, but is traffic impact statements negligible now? Is that, doesn't?
We will analyze it as part of the
And this
EIR.
gentleman mentioned decibels, noise level.
We look at that too.
I've already heard about those new apartments south of SoFi, and the person kind of likes living there, but he said the noise, and we thought it was from the concerts. He said, no, from the people leaving.
Wow.
Is terrible.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that he's probably not gonna live there long. So all this mixed use, I think traffic, it doesn't sound like that all the commercial, that all the commercial entities are being considered with the amount of traffic that they build. And then, as you said, 50/50, do you mean square feet? Because you could have one target. Does that mean just one residence? 50/50, so do you mean square feet, 50/50 residential, 50/50 commercial?
I was just throwing out numbers,
I
just
mean-
for discussion purposes, but if we were going to quantify, I mean, this team would be necessary. It would be to determine what the need is for that. But my general statement meant not just leaving it, which we've concluded, that's zoning, that has nothing to do with this, leaving that available at the discretion of the builder.
I agree with you totally.
So, Valerie, did you have a?
Yeah, I have a
Okay,
question.
then,
What factors went into deciding, in looking at the way you have the designations here, vertical versus horizontal mix? How will we, what's the, criteria for it?
Yeah. I think vertical generally is only indicated in areas that, where there's generally not housing today and where it may not be appropriate to have 100% housing in the future due to the environment, or conversely, areas where, and this is only in, I would say, some small subsets of the city, where you want to require an active ground floor environment like along Market Street.
So in the
Other
essence-
than that, it's very difficult to make vertical mixed use work from a financial standpoint.
Okay, so we have less than 40 minutes. Kip had, I think, was the last question. And then would it be okay if we let them finish the presentation and we take notes for the time that's remaining? Does that sound reasonable? Okay, thank you.
And
So Kip,
I'll
and
let
then-
Kip speak, and then I just want to have a reminder in terms of what would be most valuable to hear. Maybe, let me just introduce it now. It's just, as we go through these sites, if you have a recommendation for an alternative that should be considered, an additional alternative to present to the public, that's what we want to hear from you.
Okay, so
I
we'll
think-
hear from Kip and then we'll hear from you.
I think to get at the vision thought, it might be helpful to say that like sub-area A, even though it's labeled horizontal mixed use, there could be a horizontal mixed use predominantly residential. And then have like C2 would be horizontal mixed use predominantly commercial. And then there's a C1, we haven't gotten there yet, across from the cemetery, which might be horizontal mixed use predominantly residential. And so there would be a sense of the vision that would then be filled in. Is it 50%, 60%? Is it only by permission? Or if you give something, you can do something other than commercial or residential? But at least there's a vision to build from. And so I think each one of them needs, when you say mixed use, is it commercial mixed use, residential mixed use, or anything goes?
I just have a suggestion. I see our next meeting is not till March. This is an awful lot to cover in 2 hours. I mean, I think we've got a lot of input. Is it possible we could meet more frequently? I hate to ask that, but.
We'll have to talk to the city about that,
okay.
but let's see if we can get through this discussion.
This is a big, important deal here for us. I won't be around to see it, but, you know. Like to
Have your
know.
thumbprint on it.
So my sense is if we're talking that level, and if this is in District 2, I would think that sub-area A would be horizontal mixed use predominantly residential, because it's near a park and near transit. And horizontal mixed use District C1 would be.
C2 is what we're showing here.
I know it's 1, but to get the thing going.
Can we get back to that one when we
if we do
arrive at it?
If we
It's in
get
2
to it.
slides.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But C2 is commercial.
C2 would be commercial, I would think.
Okay.
There's an alternative where we present there is an option where we present an additional alternative in C2 that is commercial only. I'm hearing concerns with allowing housing potentially in this area by right, even though commercial allows housing, the state allows it. But if if there's interest in adding that as an alternative that's presented to the public, horizontal mixed use, or to hear their feedback, that's an option that this group could recommend.
So when you say presented to the public, do you mean a vote?
For their feedback. Can I get a show of hands? Is that something that this group wants to include as an additional alternative, commercial only?
Okay. Or
Yeah,
just show
commercial,
that.
okay.
Great.
Or just show that, yeah.
Do we need to say residential? Can we just say mixed-use commercial?
Well, they have to have an alternative. That's what they're looking for. We're presenting that one.
Commercial only
What else?
would not allow for housing. I'm hearing that there are some people that believe housing is not an appropriate use in this area.
I don't think for that area.
I would think housing would be across from the forum. Yeah, I'd say a mix of commercial uses.
Okay.
The alternatives that you are referencing, yes, we're saying, yes,
Yes,
present commercial only.
Yes.
So to not allow housing there at all,
Right.
residential, and why?
of the.
It's an alternative. We're sending this to
No, I
the
get that.
community.
Yeah.
So this young man presented some viable arguments that I happen to agree with. So I think allow the public to determine the mixed use with the emphasis, I love the way he phrased that, or the option of just commercial.
Okay.
No, I just go with Mr. Steve, I'd like to ask, I know I wouldn't say you're not against it, but do you agree with the predominantly commercial more than you agree with only commercial?
So when it comes to just the use of it, I think that allows the most flexibility. And then it's on the zoning and the developer to determine. We're imposing our view, but somebody who 10, 15, 20 years from now, they may not have a problem with it. There's sound glass and insulation where you can put argon in between 2 layers of glass and it's going to significantly reduce sound. So, I mean, there's things to mitigate that. So I think we're really just looking at the use of the land, and that's why I was trying to illustrate the zoning and then actually on the developer. And just because me personally, or you, or anyone here may not want to live there, I don't ever like anybody above me. Anytime I've lived in an apartment building, I've been on the top floor. But that's not for everybody. Some people may like the first floor. So that's my individual thing. I don't want footsteps over me. But, you know, I'm in my 60s. Somebody who is 20s and 30s is going to look at it totally different.
Which is why we were proposing the 2 options. And we are simply submitting A, B for discussion. Let the populace decide as they may.
Correct. And I was looking at the one that gives us the most flexibility versus the one that's more restrictive.
But we are. We did
So
commercial.
we'll come back to this group
But
to get your personal preferences.
enterprises may
Right,
not be
as to what you
conducive
think is
to
appropriate.
living next to.
Yeah.
So I
So-
would suggest that
You
you
know,
finish your
very residential,
presentation,
Yeah.
and then if we have some
No,
questions,
yes.
there's time left over, then maybe we can, kick in.
This is the program.
It's just it's too much.
This isn't a presentation anymore, this is the discussion.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is
So
going to be a
as we go
I think
through
we
each
can-
of
we
these
can
sites,
go
my,
slide by
our,
slide.
again, our request would be to receive your feedback on whether there should be any changes to the alternatives that are shown here for these areas.
So on C1, should we say it's commercial or mixed use, predominantly commercial, or just commercial?
We can also offer both alternatives to the public.
Oh,
But to say the mixed use is predominantly commercial, not just mixed use.
If you mean no residential, but you can have different types of commercial?
I'm saying you have more commercial than you would have residential.
Okay, yeah, so it's, so like 75-25 versus 25-75.
But it's up to-
100%.
Or 100, yes.
but that's zoning.
Yeah,
But
so that would be
That's a
the step.
zoning issue.
But when we say predominantly, it means 50% or more, but that's for the city to decide
Exactly.
Yes,
in the future, but we should have that
It's
I
already.
have a question.
adjective.
I get it.
Yeah.
But- And I agree with everybody's point of view. But we also have to keep in mind that SB 79 doesn't care what we feel or what we want to be next to.
Thank you.
And this is an option that's been given to us as far as what we're going to do with land use or what we're suggesting. And it's harsh, but we have to consider SB 79. Whether we voted for it or not, then you have your representatives you need to talk to. Where the hell were you when this passed by and you weren't thinking about our neighborhoods?
Right.
That's not these gentlemen's fault.
Right.
These gentlemen need to go on with their presentation so we
Right.
can actually present
Right.
what could possibly happen. This young man brings up some incredibly good points, but I'm sorry, young man, they don't care. And that's what SB 79 is. And then you gotta look at the developers, what it's in it for them. Are they going to use our money from our coffers? Because they never use their own money to build these buildings, so don't kid yourself. So we need to get ahead of this to where we can at least have some sort of say-so. And then to Jonathan's point, to where in the future, even if the city is not allowed to do it, we can somewhat push our way to say, this is what Inglewood wants. And that's where the alternatives are excellent. And then, I'm sorry to budget, but I was just listening, and it goes back to that.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
the bottom
horrible.
line.
I'm sorry.
all good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're on C1.
Yeah, I just want to, now it's over to C1, I just want to finish the discussion while this has been raised, site C1. This is Prairie, just to orient everyone, north of Manchester, there's a mix of uses in this area today. There is both housing and then there are largely medical, commercial uses. The alternatives here indicate continue to allow a mix of uses in the future, or as over time, if those commercial properties turn over, should they be forced to, if they want to rebuild, be forced to rebuild as housing, or should those alternatives be allowed for either commercial or housing in the future? So these are the two alternatives that we were proposing taking to the community. Allow either of those options.
I'd say mixed use, predominantly residential.
Okay.
For C1.
Okay, so we're okay with showing the community what's on the screen right now, which is two alternatives for them to provide feedback on. Our GPAC collectively may agree that we like alternative one better, but we want also to show the public alternative two for their consideration, right?
As long as we say that the vision for the mixed use is also residential.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a quick question. Is it possible to offer horizontal and vertical?
Yes, in a horizontal area, you can build vertical mixed use.
But in vertical, you cannot build horizontal. Yeah, so it's like a square rectangle situation. Yeah, yeah. Excellent question. Okay, back to F.
Yeah, while we're on this slide, let's just look at this other part of Prairie, which is the southern portion of Prairie, and also the branch of, let's see.
Imperial?
Imperial, thank you. And the alternatives being shown there along Prairie are commercial only or horizontal mixed use. And I'll just note that that portion of Prairie today, highly trafficked corridor, there is a mix of residential and commercial today, but it is primarily commercial. Is residential okay to continue to allow into the future, or should only commercial be preferred? Those are the options that we were suggesting taking to the community for their input. Area D, yeah, D1. Area D2 allows for a mix of uses today within the transit-oriented development plan for that area. So that we are consistent with what's allowed today, horizontal mixed use for area D2.
It's
Okay?
Question? Saw a hand? You're thinking about it.
Yeah, so so an alternative could be for that to be residential only over there on Prairie and near Imperial?
It could. We do not have it listed right now,
Oh, okay.
but that's something that the GPAC could consider and could be added to the map for the public to review.
That's which, is that a sub-portion of Prairie that you're thinking about, or the entire length of Prairie? Only for residential?
I was actually thinking more of a portion of Prairie, but.
Horizontal mixed use would allow for a 100% residential building, but at that
Okay.
point, the market
And I just want to
would
note,
decide.
this area, everything in the pink is zoned for commercial today. Even though on the ground there, you have both residences and commercial businesses. It's a mix of land uses today.
Only just because I'm concerned about some of the activity going on Prairie and Imperial. And we haven't even talked about Imperial yet, like from Prairie to Crenshaw, but like there's a hotel there on the corner. It's just.
Today, it might be
It's
gone in
questionable.
5 years up.
Maybe, yeah, but I don't know, is a way to alleviate that by making it just residential instead of, you know.
It wouldn't force any businesses that are there today to close or change their use.
Oh.
Yeah, they would be legal conforming or non-conforming depending on, but permitted
It
legally to exist.
only regulates what is developed in the future.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Then I would say more.
I have a question and a suggestion. The question is, Cheryl made a suggestion, and you kind of said, well, we'll have to talk to the city. So, are you committed to doing that, or do we need to take a vote if we want to have more meetings?
Well, I don't think we're at the point right now where we need to make that decision. If we can keep trying to move through the conversation, I mean, why don't...
You don't think so, but Cheryl thinks so, and I don't know who else thinks so. Okay, that's my question. because it kind of sounds like just, okay, well, that's the city. But I don't know who else.
We will, I'm certain the GPAC will have an opportunity to, one way or another, provide their recommendations related to this entire map.
And my suggestion is, I don't know the makeup of this panel, but I know, I would like to go see a mixed use, an existing one. Now, I know Glendale Galleria across the street from Glendale Galleria, there's a mixed use. So I think it would be helpful for me, if no one else, to see what these things look like, the existing ones.
Well, you have like,
That
you
would
got
be in the
Astra,
city.
you
There's
have
not.
Astra and Target right there.
Well,
That's one.
but that's just one, it's
That's mixed
one
use.
complex. It's not a large complex, like the Glendale, across from the Glendale Galleria. Anyway, that's just me saying that,
Commons is still on Target.
say it again, the comments.
No, I wasn't saying comment, I was trying to name the building. That's down on Jefferson
Oh, yeah.
and La Cienega.
Well,
Jefferson and
even
Lincoln over
if
there.
we can get a list of those places, then we can take it upon ourselves to make an informed decision how that looks, maybe talk to people who live in those environments. And anyway, that's where I'm coming from with that. And because I don't know that everybody has experience. You can see it passing by, but have you spoken to the people who live in those environments? And if we're going to make an informed decision, I don't see how it could hurt to do a little research.
So right now you're looking for the area, that the two areas are suggestion, is that what you're
For
looking
D.
for now?
Yeah.
Like horizontal mixed use? I like
Yeah, so alternative to horizontal mixed use would provide for the most flexibility on that stretch of prairie, and as it turns that corner to Imperial. Commercial only obviously would be a continuation of what's there today, and would allow housing only through the state's exemption of conditional stuff. So,
What is the D2? Is that what's currently there?
correct, yeah, so the colors beneath our boundaries are the city's current zoning. And I know we've discussed the different levels, but if we were to make no changes to the general plan, just hypothetically, the administrative changes Jonathan acknowledged would be to reflect the current zoning at the general plan level, since that is functionally how the city is operating today. So that's that is our baseline, to a degree, that's our baseline.
I see what you did there.
I got you. I'm paying attention.
Corey,
And that might be a
are these
compromise.
going to be rentals or owner occupied? Because that makes a big difference.
We're not proposing any projects here.
Yeah.
This just sets the
Land
foundation
use.
for what's allowed in
But
the
that
future.
wouldn't,
At a general, at a high level.
Not yet.
that would not affect the decision if these are going to be owner occupied or if these are going to be rentals.
It
Because-
can't, and I say that for this reason.
Okay.
At this point, the plots of land are just numbers, parcel numbers, okay? And those parcel numbers, when they're sold as a parcel number with the zoning. That's it. So even if we do, and I hear you, I promise I do, we're saying, yes, this would, we think the projection would be XYZ going forward will be best. That's not really at our purview. All we can do is say, commercial, residential, and at that point, hope for the best. I mean, really, because at that point, what we have now is already zoned, and this plan is for future purchases. Am I correct, gentlemen?
Future
It's for future purchase. So right now, unless I'm wrong, and I can
And there could be
definitely
no
known to be wrong,
contingencies.
we can't say rental only. We don't, that's not our purview. We can't say that, right?
Not at this point.
Yeah, at the
Okay.
general plan level, it's a kind of guideposts,
Yeah,
like,
it's just Okay. an overall
Yeah.
visionary document of what it will look like.
Just as a reminder, these are areas in the city that, from our prior discussions, were identified as areas that may change over time. We're just trying to establish if changes going to occur in the future, what are the very, very large box in
Can
which
you
it can
provide us with
happen?
existing builds like this and what they are? I mean, are they mostly rentals? Are they, the mixed use I'm talking about?
I have a suggestion, because I know we're short on time, and I know there's a lot of different focus areas that we need to cover. I'm wondering if you could complete the presentation, present the information to the GPAC members, and as he's going through the different focus areas, if you could take note of questions, of suggestions that we can then forward to the consultant. I just want to make sure that you have the opportunity to share all of the information that's been prepared to date. Just trying to come up with the solution to getting the information to the GPAC members in the 18 minutes that we have left. Does that work?
Yeah, I'm happy to keep presenting, just as a reminder, that all of this information was available, provided in advance of the meeting. So you have all this information. I can add some more color to it. What we were hoping was, yeah, what we were asking for recommendations for additional alternatives to be presented to the public for these areas, or changes to the ones that are shown on the map.
I hope I'm not jumping the gun too much, because my real concern is L on the map, and that would be between Prairie and Crenshaw. So it's just that strip, Imperial, again, between Prairie and Crenshaw.
Yeah.
And I'm just really concerned about what's going on in that area, and maybe, I don't know, maybe what I'm proposing is, can we do a mixed use of residential and commercial? Because a lot of the commercial properties there on Imperial, there's a lot of motels, and I never heard of them, a lot of them. But what's really happening is from our observation, I think there's a prostitution ring going on there. Police are there all the time in that area. And so how do we resolve the kind of activity that's going on that street? And it's just a bunch of just motels, and some I've never even heard of.
You can't. I mean, I'm a
And if I hear you correctly, we can't do anything
Not through the general plan, but the city has mechanisms.
So can we add residential to sort of provide a balance to that area? Because it is kind of mostly just commercial on Imperial.
So why don't we say that? It's a mixed-use district that has a balance of residential, commercial.
Vertical mixed use is what they
Yeah,
suggested.
that's what's proposed.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
So then for D and L, just to cut to the chase, we're okay with the recommendations
yeah.
shown, and these will go to the public again for their feedback, and then back to this group before we settle on a.
Yeah.
But again, I think it needs to articulate a vision that is predominantly one use or another, or a balance of.
It's a commercial leaning
And I don't,
or a
well, I don't hear
residential.
you repeating that, frankly.
How do
you
you,
go back to the slide.
how do you propose controlling over a large corridor, the balance of residential
Through
versus
zoning.
commercial uses?
The zone can either say each building has to have 50-50, or it's got to do incentives to encourage residential versus commercial, or it's got to just say, you know, that's up to the department, I would think.
Yeah, usually once the general plan has been updated, there are a series of zoning code changes that are done to implement the new policies.
Yeah.
But we're at the stage of setting the big picture.
But the big picture has a vision. The big picture says, we envision this to be a mix of uses, but we'd like to see more residential than commercial.
So that would be the horizontal.
And then it's up to you to
mixed
say,
use.
what is the percent, what is the mechanism?
So I think that would be what they have designated there as the mixed use. That could be commercial or residential.
So D1, do we want that residential leaning horizontal mixed use?
Well,
Which one am
I'm not
Yes,
familiar with the
D1
area, but
for
that's what I
this-
heard,
yes.
was that
Yeah.
there needed to be more
Right,
residential.
introduce more residential.
And so it would be a
Okay.
mixed-use district, predominantly residential.
Sure, okay.
For
Or
the
mixed
entire
use.
length of Prairie, would you say?
South
Century.
Right, where it's predominantly commercial today.
Yeah.
I mean,
In this section right here.
I think she was talking.
I think she was talking about the section along Imperial.
Imperial,
Yeah.
Imperial to.
But that.
Right, from Prairie to
I got
Crenshaw.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
But
that's
he
a
wants
real,
to-
that's a real
He wants to
concern.
nail this down, so we can move on.
Yes,
L.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
so.
but you had proposed the vertical mixed use, which may help to balance
Yeah,
what's
it'll
going
introduce
on.
those residential uses necessarily. Well, actually, I guess not necessarily, but it would be like
I
an
wish we
office.
could just turn that into
Yeah.
total residential, but I don't know if that's possible.
Suggested.
Is that,
Suggested. That's what
can we do that, or
This is a
I don't think we can, because it's already commercially
center.
zoned, right?
L is a commercial shopping center
Today.
right now.
Yeah.
So this is covered under the TOD plan. It's also, yeah, and it's also within close proximity to the metro, so
The city's housing element also has
it
a
needs
lot
to
of
allow
units
housing in this
concentrated
area.
in that area, or, prioritized.
It allows
Oh,
housing
that's good.
today.
That's
What we're
great.
saying is that it should continue to allow.
Great.
housing.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
for D1, we'd like to, this was,
Keep it.
I think this is just these alternatives, commercial only or horizontal mixed use.
right, yeah,
Right.
yeah, okay.
All right, let me,
And then same for
I need to go
L.
backwards.
We've all looked at L independently, and we're all right with what's there? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So to Renika's suggestion, I'm gonna just run through these and introduce them and provide some context for what's included in the materials that were provided to you previously. Think about what you would like to recommend or ask for, if you have comments for potential changes to these areas, make note of them. I would say send them to the city as well, and we'll have a conversation with the city about whether an additional meeting can be scheduled, or whether how we can act on those recommendations.
That sounds like a plan, yes. Yeah.
These areas here, we're still looking at major boulevards, where horizontal mixed use is suggested. F2 is Century. It is the portion of Century between Inglewood Ave and La Brea. There are hotels here, Dollar Tree, automotive services, some limited housing. This follows the recommendation of a technical assistance panel that the city commissioned from the Urban Land Institute that recommended this area as a locally serving segment of Century, allowing for a mix of uses. We also saw in the public comments a preference for allowing housing along this corridor. So the alternative for horizontal mixed use is representative of that.
Allowing housing on Century.
Yes. In this portion, which is just between.
You guys are okay with that, right?
Inglewood Ave and La Brea.
Okay.
Between what? Go ahead, say it again.
Between Inglewood Ave and La Brea, where you have hotels, a Dollar Tree, automotive services, Jefferson Elementary School field, some limited housing today. Okay. Area G is Manchester Boulevard, west of downtown, east of the 405. Today, it allows for both mixed use and commercial. The red is commercial, the hatched line is mixed use. The suggestion here is the alternative here is to allow mixed use throughout this entire area.
G.
G, correct. The public preference was for allowing housing in this area. That alternative is responsive to that.
Well, adjacent to a high school makes sense.
Great. Okay. Sorry, we already talked about this. Boy, remote doesn't want to work.
Do you want me to just do the presentation?
I got it. I'll change it.
I can,
While you guys are changing that, ask
We got
a
it.
quick question. What is an industrial flex?
That is, allows for industrial and other use types, like restaurants, cafes. It allows for light manufacturing, where you might also have a retail component, like a brewery or and that's allowed today in that area. We'll get there.
So where Home Depot is.
E is,
That's there off of where that brewery is off of Florence.
Yeah, off that Florence curve, yeah.
Area E here, again, continuing with the major boulevards, where an alternative is horizontal mixed use. This is La Brea between downtown and Century. So southern portion of La Brea. Lots of automotive services along this portion of La Brea. No real residential to speak of today. The question is, in the future, should housing be allowed in this area, or the other alternative is to retain it as a commercial-only thoroughfare. Area F1 is the western portion of Century, closest to, or the airport. Again, there was an Urban Land Institute study that the city commissioned that covered Century Boulevard that recommended in this area allowing for airport-related commercial uses, which exist there today. So that could include hotels. I will note that there is a certain density of hotel use that our economic consultants tell us is needed for that to pencil out from a market standpoint.
Can you go back to E?
Yep.
So what's the recommendation is on E? Is it all one or two?
Two alternatives, commercial only or horizontal mixed use.
And horizontal is allowing commercial and residential to coexist.
Side by side
Side
or
by side.
stacked?
Yep.
Or stacked.
But
Yep.
is the vision more commercial than residential?
No, it should be.
I would say predominantly commercial if it's mixed use.
Okay.
Right now.
I would go with horizontal.
No, it would say horizontal, but it would be, the vision is that it would be more of a commercial
Property.
mixed use than a residential.
Yeah, and that's its
mix of uses.
That makes sense. Its character today. It's all commercial. Yeah.
Or commercial.
It's
Naturally.
also predominantly automotive too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
going to decline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Next, some images of what vertical mixed use could look like at the intersection of Manchester and Crenshaw. Yeah. Pretty, right? Look at the next slide, showing at the ground level. Big Lots is there on the right, just to orient you. That's what a ground level view would look like, a vertical mixed use in this area. So we're going to be talking about vertical mixed use now. Okay, next slide. Area B, which is La Brea, north of downtown, north of Florence, and south of the Ralphs. This was an area where standalone housing may not be appropriate. So the alternatives here are continue to allow, at least in the B1 portion, commercial only, which is what it's designated for today. Or if housing is an acceptable use, to only allow that to be located above commercial use. And in area B2, which allows a mix of uses today, to continue to allow mix of uses, but not allow standalone residential in that area.
B2 would not allow standalone residential?
Right.
And B1 would?
No. Standalone residential would not be allowed in either of those alternatives.
What's the difference between B1 and B2?
B1 we're saying there could be an alternative where it remains only commercial, which is what it is today.
Okay.
Yeah, and doesn't allow housing.
So B1, Alt 2, and B2 are the same, or no?
Yes. Correct, yeah. Correct.
They have the same option,
Yeah.
but they're discrete areas.
And because B2 allows housing today, it's not appropriate to say, no, I'm sorry, no, you
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, I'm okay with that, yeah.
And then F3 is Century, the portion of Century that is between La Brea and Prairie, and close to the sports and entertainment district. Again, this is building off of the recommendations from the Urban Land Institute panel, who suggested vertical mixed use for this area. Okay.
Now, point of clarification,
Yes.
we as a collective only covered like 4 or 5 of those. So what the suggestion is to email in what our recommendations are so that the plan is put together for the public proposal. When are those needed? What's the deadline for that?
So I don't know if that includes possibly another meeting with the GPAC before we go back to the public. I guess it might depend on what the comments are. Maybe a week to get comments to us, and we can distill them and compile them and forward them to the consultant. And then I guess based on the nature of the comments, we'll determine if we need to have another meeting or we
I'm
need to discuss.
assuming that this group doesn't want to try to squeeze in another meeting.
We do.
In December.
In December?
Oh, in
Oh,
December.
not in
Not in
December.
December.
I didn't think so.
Late January, February.
Oh, no, sorry, I was.
Oh, I think that would work.
Not yet.
Consider that.
I think that would be
Yeah,
better.
done.
I think so.
Okay.
When is the next community meeting? What are you aiming for?
Well, that'll depend. If we need to have another meeting of this group, that may need to be pushed out.
I think it's helpful to have a discussion with the group rather than have individual comments thrown at you.
Sure.
Because I don't want someone commenting on my neighborhood
Yeah.
that I don't agree with. And I'd like to be able to understand what other people think about it.
Yeah. I agree.
Something for January?
Late January.
Late January.
We just need to make sure, from a scope and budget standpoint, that we have the city's authorization to come out and add an additional meeting.
It's our money, you guys can come.
People have spoken.
We're happy to do it. We just gotta make sure we're all on the same page. Okay.
Right.
I'm gonna go through these quickly. The other character areas are pedestrian-oriented areas of the city, okay, where there are less roadway width, there's a consistent building wall at the street, they could be a focus of activity for people who want to walk, bike, scoot. We've got 4 types that fall under this area. Okay, and in a representative image, this includes Centinela on the western portion, west of La Brea. It includes La Brea north of Centinela. It includes Manchester east of the cemetery. And it includes Arborvitae east of the 405 to Prairie. And I think for all of those, we're showing horizontal mixed use as the
You've
alternative.
introduced a new concept called node. What has constituted those? They seem somewhat random.
They're at major intersection points as centers of
Other than that.
potential activity.
Other than that, because it's a major intersection near a single-family residential neighborhood. They have a 6-story building in Centinela and La Brea might be problematic.
Some mixed use.
Okay.
And there may be other ones like Crenshaw and Manchester seems to be surrounded by residential, single-family residential.
Which there are ways to limit, how buildings address single-family adjacency to single-family residential areas. I think the idea is that at these major intersections, they are places where you could have more focused activity.
Why do you envision that?
Because when you're a developer, when you're looking at, maximizing your investment, that 100% intersections where you have high volumes of activity that are meeting are more attractive often than, smaller parcels that are located in the middle of a block.
But the people who live there, I don't think would appreciate that.
Okay, thank you for that perspective.
What are you gonna do with it?
We want to just introduce the other format types that we're looking at.
Well, this is me.
Yeah.
All right. Jonathan, have some water. Okay, so Jonathan kind of introduced these at the beginning of the presentation. These are some of our larger property, kind of collections, which might present an opportunity for larger infill. So these are existing retail areas, including L, which we already talked about in that bottom right-hand Imperial Crenshaw corner. So we'll go to the next slide, please, Sean. And so now we're looking at Site K. This is the village at Century. Everyone should be pretty familiar with this. Target makes it really easy to pick out from the overview. This is, Hervé, kind of getting to what you're looking at, given the size of this area, creates an opportunity to create kind of an internally consistent, connected, Sean, if you can go to the next slide, mixed-use development. So maybe not identical to the Galleria, or sorry, I can't remember the Americana, maybe not identical to, but in many ways bringing in some of those desirable features. So it is the ground floor commercial, it is the stacked residential, but in a horizontal mixed-use configuration, you could have standalone residential towers adjacent to a standalone office building, and then right next door, 4 stories of residential with the single floor of a cafe, gym, Pilates studio, whatever you want to have, kind of your local services on that ground floor within this development.
But Corey, where's the T word, traffic?
Yeah, and so, it's on Century Boulevard, unfortunately.
And it's a mess already?
Yeah, so we will look at
And a
that.
block over, it's gonna have 575 units?
Yeah, on the south side, not too far away.
What about the studio?
How do you mean?
Hollywood Park is going to
Oh.
have
Hollywood Park is gonna have a studio back there.
Is it the?
sound stages.
Yeah.
What about the
It's on the
studio?
back.
In what regard?
Yes.
What about the studio?
Is it visible on this map?
Well,
They're building sound stages at Hollywood Park.
Within Hollywood Park,
How-
not part of this development.
Right. But can I see it on the map right now? Because there's a lot of flat parking. Is it on one of those parking lots?
It's in that general district.
Yeah, okay.
Let me ask this
That's,
gentleman.
yes,
You
a
said
consideration,
that
certainly.
76 or whatever doesn't care. So are that what we have to say, that our task here is to ignore the traffic impact?
No, we will be studying traffic impacts on a citywide basis through the environmental impact report.
And when is that gonna be done?
If you looked at this, if you have your packet in front of you, I went over the schedule at the beginning.
I'm sorry.
That covers that after the land use plan, the recommended land use plan is approved, that will initiate the study of the environmental impacts.
Well, if you approved it,
It's not approved formally, it's just approved for study.
And
Blessed by
there's
the
an
GPAC.
There's an Inglewood Transit Committee that's very involved in changing the transit and the traffic here in Inglewood.
Yeah. So as Mr. Sneed was alluding to, changing transportation and mobility trends is kind of what a lot of Southern California planning is leaning on these days. Not exclusive to Inglewood. A lot of the issues we're discussing tonight, we see replicated in the communities we serve elsewhere. And that's, south to San Diego and north up to the Bay Area. Everybody's struggling with the same dilemmas.
but all Californians resisted. We're not New York.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Mr. Perez was mentioning, that's where your local representatives and statewide elections is where we have our voice. But so this is kind of a nice segue. Let's keep this picture in mind. Sean, can you switch to the next slide? We've already discussed L to a certain degree, the recommendation, or not, one of the alternatives that we can take to the public right now is that vertical mix of uses, which would introduce residential development to an area that is currently almost exclusively commercial. It is cross-hatched blue because that is an existing plan that the city has established for that area, the TOD, Transit Oriented Development Plan. So this suggestion for the public of vertical mixed use is consistent with the plan adopted by the city today. It is technically not a change from what the city already allows. So the question for the committee then would be, is there an alternative to vertical mixed use, or vertical mixed use is something we can allow the public to provide some comment on?
That will come back.
Yeah, that will come back to through email messages. So now looking at K, we looked at the graphic on the slide previous. But yeah, so that's the consideration. Larger area allows for a little bit more creativity on the site itself. If a studio's coming, sound stages are coming to the backside, a developer would presumably want to locate their prospective development in such a way that tenants are not necessarily affected so much. And density allows us to be more efficient with land, so maybe that becomes parking and or open space. So people aren't necessarily living there, but they still have the amenity and access to that acreage. Okay, so our final areas are gonna be districts. The first one we've already kind of talked about in loose terms is Market Street downtown. The cross-hatching again indicates that the city has a TOD plan in place for this area, and it is consistent with the recommendation we have on the alternatives map, which is vertical mixed use. As you go north to central to south on our plan, we do have variation in height, and that is currently allowed in the adopted plan today. And so our recommendations are generally consistent with what the plan is showing now. And that is higher intensity nodes at the north and south, anchoring lower intensity in between in what is often referred to as a barbell kind of configuration. So activity centers anchoring with lower density in between. And as vertical mixed use suggests, you would not have standalone residential, but you would have, in many cases, residential, or in most cases, residential on top of a commercial use. Again, acknowledging that Market Street is an area where people want to see activation and create that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday destination. And again, kind of corroborated by the public feedback that we've been hearing.
Is that MU1?
Correct, yeah. It is a mix, MU1 and I believe MU Mixed Use Historical District. HC Historical Core, I think, is the other designation. So yeah, two different types within the downtown area right now, but that's M. And then Q is kind of an oddball in this grand scheme of things. It's up at the very northeast corner of the city at the intersection of Van Ness and West 79th Street. Right now, it's generally, I think there's like 4 businesses and a church. Right, the church is the big anchor,
store?
and then there's a lot of parking.
Restaurant.
Exactly what's right.
Yeah, so it is commercial today, so one of the alternatives to consider for us and the public is retain its commercial nature, no change. The other option is to introduce horizontal mixed uses, so standalone commercial could exist, but it would also create opportunities for standalone residential to exist. And then, of course, our hybrid, you could have a vertically mixed use structure within that zone. You can see, as Jonathan was alluding to earlier, we do have a scale kind of built in, so 3 to 4 stories, as opposed to maybe 6 or higher that we've identified in other places. Again, being respectful of the existing single-family neighborhoods. 3 to 4, you can blend pretty well into single and two-story adjacencies. So that's our considerations there. And again, you can see our bullet point pedestrian-oriented, good activity center potentially for the immediate community. And I think we're down to our last slide. We had the question of industrial flex on the far west of the city. Right now, that light blue in the bottom left-hand corner, right above the Arbor Vitae, is airport serving industrial uses, so that's where the rental car facilities currently sit. But obviously with LAWA building its kind of consolidated facility, that's a huge opportunity for the city to look at changing its use. And as Jonathan kind of rattled off earlier, industrial flex would still allow for some of those light industrial, low emitting uses, right? So not noxious smells or things into the atmosphere that you would be able to interact. It's mostly indoor facilities, but then also allowing for a music venue, right? Fully enclosed. That's a brewery, something where it is again enclosed but suitable for an industrial type environment.
And I just want to add that is what's allowed today, is
correct.
Flexible uses beyond just industrial. And from the public, the preference and the votes that we received was to continue to allow that. So that's why we're not showing an alternative there that would reduce and limit what is already allowed today.
So, and the upper end would allow, industrial flex, that would allow residential or no?
It would not.
It would not.
It would not allow residential.
I mean, they took out all that residential.
There is residential in the purple areas, but the purple is not included in our boundary. That's kind of the arts, transitional arts district.
That's allowed as mixed use.
And that's allowed as a residential, commercial, mixed use today. And
What's
not-
over there now, the cement place and something else in that section, north of Florence?
Yes, and then,
No,
there's like,
this is arborvitae.
industrial areas, above Florence right there.
And it's split.
And along west, that's Hyde Park Boulevard, right above Florence.
Yeah.
It's that industrial area there.
So the alternative for the public's consideration is no change from what is currently permitted. That's what this map is showing. So your feedback would be, no, let's think of something else, or we're okay with what's shown and the public can provide that feedback secondary.
You got the metro line right there.
I'm sober, sorry.
You got the metro line right there too, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah, and so your maps in front of you should have that metro station
Yeah.
with the quarter-mile and half-mile boundaries. That's the SB 79 Jonathan was alluding to. And obviously that creates kind of an interesting situation with the industrial flex areas.
Right, because you got industrial flex, but you got metro there, which would be great for residential, for vertical mixed use.
Yep, you're right. And it would be permitted by the state. The city would have to walk through that process, but could not deny that.
Could not deny, right?
So, yeah,
Why would industrial flex allow, if we wanted more industrial assembly type uses, allow for 6-story buildings?
That's what's allowed.
Yeah. Effectively just height, so you can go up to 100 feet.
Why would you have a 6-story assembly building?
If you got a gantry crane and need clearance.
This is we're
That's not a
consistent
story,
with
that's
what's
height.
allowed today.
Yeah, but people don't understand height as well as they understand stories. You can see windows, 65 feet doesn't mean a whole lot generally.
So 100 foot is the limit?
That's,
No,
that's
what's
probably
six stories is allowed today
Yeah.
in this area.
I can actually tell you. I think I have it in front of me. Let's see.
Let's focus.
Well, now I'm curious, unfortunately.
Okay, last area is the medical
75
center.
feet. There we go. Yeah, the last area is the medical center. And so this is sandwiched Arbor Vitae to the north, Century to the south, and then, La Brea west, Prairie east. This is the Centinela Hospital right now. The current zoning allows for a mix of residential and medical office type uses. Obviously, the hospital itself is an inpatient facility, but it is surrounded by significant outpatient private practice and ancillary scanning, testing centers related to Centinela. So the first recommendation or the first alternative is medical residential, which would be no change from what is currently permitted. The second would be to prioritize commercial uses and create that medical / R&D, kind of, not business park, but where research is occurring, right? It would kind of lean more into that research and development, I guess that's what R&D stands for, research and development side of the medical uses. So I don't believe there are any existing residential units within our O boundary specifically, but obviously once you step one parcel outside of our O boundary, you do have existing multifamily homes. So we were very precise in how we kind of trimmed that. So that area specifically does have a little more flexibility to remove a residential component that is currently allowed, because no uses exist today. We would have to make the capacity up elsewhere, but thankfully this designation is a fairly low density, and given what else we've talked about tonight, can be accommodated quite easily elsewhere. But those are our two recommendations for O, and I think that's the end of our public comment.
Okay.
Are there any members of the public that would like to provide comment?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. You're here.
All right, you win a special award for hanging around for the entire discussion.
Okay. Alrighty.
So I hope that during that discussion you've made some additional notes of thoughts you might have had as we were going through those, of things you would like to discuss together when we reconvene. which will work with the city to identify when and how we do that.
And in the meantime, emails are going to whom?
If you would like to, I think it's kind of been resolved that we're gonna come back together to discuss. If you have questions that you would like our team to address, that would be helpful to have in advance. So I would ask if you have questions that you would like our team to address that would help inform your thoughts, those to send so that we're prepared for the next meeting to answer those questions would be helpful.
Would land use have to be modified to provide space for an additional medical center in Inglewood?
Well, we'll look at the zoning, but I don't know if that's a permitted use within, like broadly within the commercial districts, but.
Like a hospital type?
Like a hospital type, yeah.
Well, I was wondering if it's under alternative 2, where you have the medical commercial, and you talked about research and expanding medical facilities. Is it possible to grow the hospital where it is?
That's an excellent question.
And include a helioport.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the existing zoning is there for. It's residential medical and allows both residential and medical uses. So that's kind of the question of, do we see that now? Because that's already allowed.
Well, what I'm saying is, can that be part of alternative 2 under O? In terms of, you said either alternative 1 is medical, residential commercial.
Right.
As part of that commercial, could that be the expansion of the
Yes,
hospital?
sure. Yes.
Research, helioport
Yes.
for the community, because as it grows with more people, one of my concerns is being stuck here.
Yeah,
and
that
can't
would-
get, out to get to a hospital, that
That would be allowed
has
in.
the services you need.
That would be allowed in either of those alternatives. The continued medical use and expanded medical use is allowed in both alternatives. The only difference is one of them allows for residential, which does today. The other would say, no residential.
Well, alternative 2 is no residential.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And, okay, well, that's what, I'll be sending a note about that.
And the second question would be school or university, something like a university extension or some type of learning. Is that also?
Similar to parks, in a sense, the discussion of parks. Obviously, the city is not, Inglewood Unified is its own entity, so the school district develops its own properties, so they would need to go out and acquire.
Well, I'm not talking about,
physical footprint.
I'm not talking about K-12, I'm thinking more of if UCLA wanted to build an extension or.
Usually accommodated in commercial.
Commercial?
Yeah, like an extension campus.
But
They're allowed under our code. It's just, there's some areas where the school would require like a special use permit, but it is allowed under commercial.
You'd have to have some residential, like some dorm, or is it part? No, okay.
It's considered like an office type of use.
Okay, group, in the essence of time,
Okay.
we're going just a little bit over time.
Oh, I appreciate you all.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the request is, if we have any questions, to get them together, maybe give them to
The chair?
prior.
Get him to the chair. I do have one more question for this group. In considering our next meeting, is Wednesday or Thursday better for the people at the table here?
It depends on which week we're talking about. We're talking about January.
Wednesday's better for me.
Keep the
Generally.
consistency.
Generally Wednesday.
Keep the consistency.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was
Which
third
Wednesday
Wednesdays,
is
right?
that?
Or is it the third one?
Thursday we had
Oh,
originally.
Yeah,
The
now
third
so-
Thursday
okay.
we have a
Thursdays are
meeting
good.
watch.
We started Thursdays and it didn't go well, so we ended up.
Okay.
Wednesdays.
What's today?
Easy.
So we're looking for in January? Are we gonna try to project a tentative date or no? Or shall we get back?
Well, I know
The city has to.
is it pretty?
Right, I just want to say
I
tentative.
think Bernard is aware that another meeting is gonna be needed before the community meeting.
Mm-hmm. But I'm hopeful that we can, I would be ready to go next week, but I know we've got holidays and all that. So as early in January as people are willing to, we'd be happy to resume the conversation. If it's the 7th or the 14th, I don't know what the city may have other constraints in terms of other meetings happening, so we'll want to confirm with their calendar, planning commission, I know planning
Yes.
commission's on it, but other commission, committee
Okay,
meetings.
so
that
you
they-
guys wanna coordinate, Renika?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then get back with us? and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 7th or the 14th.
And I guess the earlier, the sooner the better, while it's still kind of fresh.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we don't have to go over so much review.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I appreciate the level of thought and consideration that you all are, and seriousness that you're all considering your role. And so, there's no such thing as a bad question. I appreciate all the questions that were raised tonight. I hope we were able to provide a little bit more clarity than you came in with. Maybe some more confusion in some cases, but I know we've given you a lot to think about, and I appreciate you giving a lot of thought and consideration to the questions that are raised.
We thank you for your time and your patience. So if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn our meeting and we'll look to receive direction regarding our next meeting.
Excellent.
And happy holiday, everybody.